Hello, and welcome to the Haaretz Podcast. I'm Alison Kaplan-Summer in Tel Aviv. The Israeli government's latest decision has landed like a bombshell. The Security Cabinet voted Friday to stand behind Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's initiative for a new military offensive that would take control of and occupy Gaza City, with the strong possibility of taking over the entire Gaza Strip. Reaction has been swift and hard-hitting. Here in Israel, tens of thousands of Israelis took to the streets the day after in protest. The families of hostages and fallen IDF soldiers have called for a nationwide strike next week to demand a deal for the release of their loved ones, whom they believe a new offensive in Gaza would endanger, even as they already fear for their lives. And around the world, some of Israel's closest allies have condemned the move and are backing up their words with promises of action.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has announced that Germany will suspend arms deliveries to Israel, weapons that could be used in the Gaza Strip. Now, this is a significant announcement. Germany is the second largest supplier of weapons to Israel. The chancellor said that he is deeply concerned about the continued suffering of Palestinians and said the release of the Israeli hostages and negotiations for a ceasefire are Germany's top priorities.
Here with me to assess the reaction in Europe and the United States and what it means is Executive Director of J Street Israel, a former policy advisor to Shimon Peres, and the former consul-general in Boston, Nadav Tamir. Our conversation is coming up.
I'm Esther Solomon, Editor-in-Chief of Haaretz English. Around the world, the fight is on to preserve critical and independent media. Haaretz, Israel's oldest newspaper, upholds its long tradition of accurate, committed, and incisive journalism, refusing to bend its reporting to pressure from any government or leader. A digital subscription to Haaretz gives you up-to-the-minute news and analysis in English from journalists who live Israel's reality and are committed to covering the Middle East and its global repercussions. At the same time, your subscription supports the cause of a free press that holds the powerful to account in Israel and around the world. I invite you to become a subscriber to Haaretz now. Just go to Haaretz.com and use the code Haaretz10, that's Haaretz with the number 10, for 10% off an annual subscription.
Nadav Tamir, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Nadav, can we just survey the moment we're in from a macro perspective? We use the words unprecedented and dramatic, but can you compare this particular situation after this cabinet decision to anything you've seen before in your career as a diplomat and as an activist in Israel's history?
No. And, there's so many things building to it. It's the judicial coup, and it's what Smotrich is doing in the West Bank, and so many other things that happened, the Gallant firing. But this is definitely raised it to a level that I haven't seen, where you actually starting to hear mainstream former generals who are saying that soldiers should not obey because it's an illegal order. I haven't seen that in my life.
This planned conquering takeover of Gaza City, downgraded from previous declarations of we are going to reoccupy the entire Gaza Strip, it's quickly gotten international condemnations everywhere. Great Britain, Russia, China, United Nations, many other countries. What do you see so far of the diplomatic repercussions of this cabinet decision? And specifically, I want to know what your take is on the latest news, which seems pretty historic, of Germany vowing to suspend arms sales to Israel of any weapons that could be used in Gaza.
We are hearing things that we never heard from great friends of Israel. Those European leaders, and I know their ambassadors here, are all great friends of Israel that were working tirelessly for the release of hostages. Not that they could do much, but they cared much more than our government. And by actually keeping on saying time and time again that Israel has a full right to protect itself after the horrible massacre of October 7th and against Iran and Hezbollah, but now they cannot support this war any longer because it is so clear to them, just like it's clear to most Israelis, that this war has no purpose and it's only going on for political reasons, while endangering the hostages, endangering soldiers for no purpose, and the huge humanitarian tragedy in Gaza that most of our media doesn't show. Thank God we have Haaretz.
Well, we're not going to argue with you on that point on this podcast. What about Germany? What about Germany not wanting to sell arms to Israel that could be used, they say, to attack Gaza, but also potentially to protect Israelis?
Well, people have to make this distinction. I mean, Germany will always be there when Israel is in defense mode or when Israel is fighting a just war, just like the U.S. The senators that are calling, to limit some weapons in the U.S. are all friends of Israel, are all Zionists. In Israel, we don't make the distinction. When Biden stopped kind of one shipment of 2 tons bombs because he thought it's not the right thing for Rafah, people treated him as if he was against the security of Israel, which cannot be further from the truth. Though it's the same thing with Germany. Germany defined the security of Israel as part of its own definition, their raison d'etre, the German raison d'etre that, on both parties, the SPD and the conservatives. So when they're doing that, they really, really want to send a message that they are not part of what's going on now in Gaza.
So you really think the two things can be put separately? You think after what's happening in Gaza that, God forbid, we have another round of conflict with Iran, you feel like Europe and the United States would be there in the same way that they were there for us last time?
If it will be justified, if it will be an attack on Iran to postpone elections in Israel or to keep Ben-Gvir and Smotrich in the government, not. But if it will be a justified war, they will be there. In Israel, people find it hard to make the distinctions, but most of the world observers can tell when it's for real or when it's just for political reasons.
Looking specifically at the United States, hostage families, Israelis in the streets, politicians, people like you have turned time and time again to President Donald Trump and the Trump White House to put a check on Netanyahu to no avail. You've written that from Kissinger and Carter to Bush and Obama, history has shown that true breakthroughs only came about when Washington applied pressure rather than engaged in platitudes. Trump's not even really engaging in platitudes. Have you given up on Trump pressuring Netanyahu to end this thing? He seems to want to end the images of starving children. He's pressuring Israel clearly to allow the flow of humanitarian aid, which is now resumed, but not on a ceasefire deal and not on this latest announcement about Gaza City. So have you given up on Trump yet?
I never give up on anything. That's why I'm in this business. I'm an eternal optimist who believes that there's always a way to change things for the better. When I try to analyze what Trump is trying to achieve in the Middle East, with the Saudis, with the Emiratis, with the Qataris, facing the Iranians, not creating a vacuum for China and Russia, it doesn't make sense that he's not using his leverage on Netanyahu, because nothing that Netanyahu is doing is helpful for those things. So I still hope that at some point Trump will get it, that what Dermer and Netanyahu are selling him about this ultimate victory, and that Hamas one day will just throw out their arms and say, we give up, we give you the hostages, you could do with us whatever you want, is BS, excuse my French.
Beyond the White House, what is the effect of this latest development, do you think, on U.S. policy among Democrats and Republicans in Congress?
Well, Democrats feel for years now that Netanyahu chose the Republican Party and that he doesn't care much about what they say. And he took advantage of Biden's instinctive support in a way that was bad for Israel, bad for America. But I think that the right-wingers in Israel don't see the real picture that is happening in the Republican Party. What you see from the MAGA movement is more and more calls not to give Israel the special treatment, not to fund a country that has a GDP more than some of the countries in the U.S. that have free insurance, health insurance, while most Americans. So those new voices that we're hearing, I think that soon Netanyahu's and the AIPACs will remain only with the old school evangelical Christians, because even the Republican Party is moving away.
Nadav, last week on the podcast, my guest was our editor-in-chief here at Haaretz, Aluf Ben, and he posited the theory that if Benjamin Netanyahu has an overall strategy, has an overall mission throughout his career, it has been to prevent the creation of a Palestinian state and depress the Palestinian national movement in any way he can. It shows kind of why he's in such harmony with President Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, who fly in the face, I think, of the traditional U.S. policy of doing everything it can to promote two states. So given that, do you feel like European countries are on point for their decision to punish Netanyahu for his actions in Gaza by recognizing a Palestinian state, these historic declarations of intention by the leaders of France and Great Britain and others to do so?
Maybe they see it as punish for Netanyahu, but as a Zionist Israeli, I see it as a big prize for us. I think that a Palestinian state is first and foremost an Israeli interest. There is no way Israel could remain the homeland of the Jewish people and a democracy if there will be no Palestinian state. And for very long, all those countries said, yeah, we are for the two-state solution, but we will wait until Israelis and Palestinians will get there. I think one of the things that October 7th showed them is that they cannot wait anymore. Definitely not when Netanyahu is in power, because it's not going to happen. And that this conflict has a spillover effect over so many other things in the world, including, those demonstrations on their streets, their politics, American campuses, the world economy, navigation in the Red Sea, so many things. So I think the sense of urgency that the international community should not wait until Israelis and Palestinians will find a way to get there is not actually bad for Israel. It's good for Israel. And unfortunately, we'll have to wait until this government is gone in order to use that sense of urgency to our advantage and to utilize this amazing opportunity that all of our neighbors want to normalize relations if we only find a way to help the Palestinians have their demilitarized state.
So you applaud this trend of allies deciding that they are going to recognize a basically non-existent Palestinian state. You think it has symbolic value and is a silver lining of the war?
Yeah, it is symbolic, but it has consequences. And I hope that at some point it will come to the Security Council, and if whatever American administration will realize that they're the only ones in the Security Council that are against it and will not veto it, then it will become real. And then you'll have all the international consequences of a situation that this kind of occupation is not just temporary. I think that one of the problems with Oslo, and I work for someone who was very invested in Oslo.
Shimon Peres.
Exactly, was that there was no end game. And we let the spoilers from both sides, Hamas on the Palestinian side, Yigal Amir and his likes, and now Ben-Gvir, Smotrich and others, to derail the process, to make sure that there will not be an end game. And I do believe that now we have to do it in a different order. We need Palestinian sovereign entity to have negotiation with, because eventually we need to decide where exactly is the border, what the land swaps, what's the status of Jerusalem, what to do with the refugees, security arrangements. But it has to overcome the power imbalance that creates a situation where we never get there. And I also think it's a very important message to the Palestinians that they lost hope that there will be a two-state solution, and that's why the support for Hamas was growing. But now, if they'll see that the international community is serious, you will see more Palestinian support, diplomatic solutions, and supporting a different government of both Hamas and Abbas that lost legitimacy.
Nadav, the president of J Street, the organization you represent, Jeremy Ben-Ami, made headlines when he wrote in his newsletter about the word genocide. He said he, quote, cannot and will not argue anymore against those using the term. I simply won't defend the indefensible. Until now, I have tried to deflect and defend when challenged to call this genocide, he said regarding Gaza. I have, however, been persuaded rationally by legal and scholarly arguments that international courts will one day find that Israel has broken the International Genocide Convention. He doesn't use the word himself. He said he has issues with that because of the Holocaust history of his family, but he comes kind of close, and it's people have taken notice considering that he's a prominent American Jewish leader. What do you think of his decision to write this?
I think that he had to be true to himself, but this is not a J Street position. J Street think that using the words that are so radioactive is not helpful, and we have to be strategic. We're trying to change policy. We want to get more and more of the Jewish community to support us. We already have a majority that support our views, and using words like genocide, like apartheid, is not helpful.
But unlike Jeremy, you would argue with those who use the word?
No, we will not argue with them. We will just say we have to end this tragedy. We have to make sure that Palestinians and Israelis have a future of peace and diplomacy. And we have a huge opportunity in front of us, of our eyes, that is not being taken by this government. And I think it is less constructive to deal with the definitions of genocide, which is a legal issue. We let the legal scholars deal with it.
We see thousands, tens of thousands of Israelis still coming out on the streets week after week to protest the actions of the government in Gaza. Poll after poll shows 70-80% of Israelis would like to end the war. And yet the demonstrations, months and years of them, do not seem to have an effect of the government. As someone who deals with the outside world and Israel's relationship with other countries, do you feel that there is still a value in the fact that Israelis are on the street saying this is not what we want, advocating for the hostages, for the hostage families, and for those who simply want this to end, who don't think that this is the right direction they want their country to take? Do you feel that there's still value in demonstrating, even though it does not seem to really make a difference as far as the government is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of those demonstrators, and I'm in the streets all the time. Even though I do other things to try to bring change, and that's why I work for J Street, I believe everybody should do what they can. And you can never know when you'll have this kind of moment of change. That I do believe that the demonstration did stop some of the judicial coup. I do believe in another thing, that we should let the world know that not all Israelis are government, that there is a distinction, and that there are many liberal Israelis who are against this government, who are against this ongoing war, who are supporting a hostage deal, who are against the judicial coup, who think that should be accountability for October 7th. It is so important to send this sign to the world that there are so many Israelis that are willing to partner with liberal American Jews or with liberal democratic governments around the world to bring a change.
Nadav, you grew up in Kibbutz Menara in northern Israel, which is probably the single most community that was most badly damaged or destroyed by the war. There, obviously we have the Gaza communities who were directly invaded on October 7th, but Menara was badly damaged by missiles from Hezbollah and is not even close to recovering. What was it like to go see your childhood landscape look like that, and what do you see being done to try to rehabilitate it?
It was very hard to see that around 75% of the buildings got hit by Kornet rockets or other rockets from Hezbollah. But I have to say that we feel a lot of energy from the community and from people like me who left the kibbutz but are all in trying to help the community to go back. And we see support from Jewish communities and others. Unfortunately, not enough from our own government. But the community is very, very determined to go back and to rebuild the kibbutz, and we're seeing progress that is pretty amazing. And I think it gives me a lot of optimism to see that nobody is giving up on Manara, at least not from the people who grew up there and the people who still live there.
Speaking of optimism, you worked at Shimon Peres' side for more than 7 years. You say that it was Shimon Peres who taught you your optimism. Do you ever think about what he would say if he could see what was happening to Israel now? And do you think he would still be an optimist?
Absolutely. I think he would look at this tragedy and say that even though it hardened the hearts of many Israelis and many Palestinians, on the same side, we have now an opportunity that we never had. The opportunity to include the solution of the Palestinian conflict with a amazing regional sense of urgency and agency to bring change. And he would believe that we could turn this lemon into limoncello or lemonade or whatever, because sometimes after big tragedies, people are ready for a change because they're out of their comfort zone. Just like after the Yom Kippur War, when we were all traumatized, eventually we reached the peace with Egypt. So I believe that Peres would look for those opportunities and work very hard to make them, real.
Nadav Tamir, Executive Director of J Street Israel, thank you so much for joining us and coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you do to keep us honest about the situation on the ground.
And that's it for this episode of the Haaretz Podcast. Thanks to my guest, Nadav Tamir, and to producer and editor, Nahara Malkin. If you'd like to continue to listen to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to keep up with all the latest news on Israel, the Middle East, and the Jewish world, don't forget to subscribe and follow Haaretz.com. I'm Alison Kaplan-Sommer, and until next time, shalom from Tel Aviv.